He's like, yeah, I heckled him. And I was like, why'd you heckle him? And he was like, comedians love it when you heckle them. And I was like, no, we don't.
Hey, I'm Sean Hill, a DJ and radio host on The Edge, and I love stand-up comedy. A couple years ago, I faced my biggest fear and did my first open mic. I was hooked. In May this year, I'm doing my first ever full-hour show at the New Zealand Comedy Festival, and to be honest with you, I'm absolutely shitting myself. So come with me as I chat to the biggest comedians in the game looking for advice, wisdom, and let's be honest, a good yarn. Welcome to the Comedy Club.
I just think the main thing I love about improv comedy is that you are literally encouraged to fail.
Yeah.
That is funny. Like
Yes.
that's when you're succeeding, is when you're not succeeding. Whereas stand-up, hard. Stand-up is like, it's like, here's my jokes that I've pre-written, please laugh. And if you don't, I'm going to
Drive into oncoming traffic on the way home.
Yeah.
That's why I was so interested to do this podcast, because talking to people from all different angles, and I've talked to a lot of people who have come in through stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Actually, everyone else I've talked to, and then to get someone on who's come through theatre, sports, and sketch.
Yeah.
Like I did a show, I did the Edge show with Chris Parker for a little bit.
Yes,
and
of course.
I was starting comedy the same time I was doing a show with him, and it was hard to pick his brain for it because he came through such a different angle. And my thing is like open mics and trying to get spots at the Classic Comedy Club and doing things. And he's like, I never did a gig there.
Yeah.
I'm doing I just walked into doing an hour stand up from being like the hilarious guy doing sketches and improv and stuff. And it's so different.
Did you do drama when you were a kid or like a teenager?
I did a bit of theatre sports in high school.
Did you?
Yeah, in Tauranga there was a little, but it was so
Shout
different.
out.
There was a it was like a hall, a community hall, and my mum would drop me off every Thursday, and I did it for 2 years. And there were like 12 of us. And yeah, it was just a bunch of dorky kids who were like trying to make each other laugh doing that. So I did it for a couple of years and I really enjoyed it. And then I kind of stopped doing anything like that. But I loved it. But I haven't done any improv things since.
Would you want to? Or would it scare you, do you think?
I think both. The reason I started doing stand-up is because it terrified me.
Yeah.
Like I was so afraid of it.
Yeah.
I talked to you about it earlier. I was like, it took me so long to do.
Yeah.
I've only been doing it a year and a half now, and that's kind of the reason for this podcast. Is to like, I'm so enamored by comics and the art of stand-up because I've done it and I'm learning so much, but I'm realizing how difficult it is, but how fun it is.
Yes.
And how no one outside of that can relate to it.
Yes, totally. Do you know what's really interesting? This is a tangent, but based on like what you're saying around like that feeling of like wanting to do it and then feeling scared about it. I met this guy who was he'd seen Pax Asadi's show, and he was just hanging around the basement after we were just having some drinks at the basement. And this guy was kind of hanging around being annoying and like just chatting to everyone, and we were kind of like, what's this guy's deal? And I was like, I'm gonna get in, like I'm gonna psychoanalyze this dude. So I was like, hey man, like where have you just come from? And he was like, oh, I was at Pax Asadi's gig. And I was like, oh, amazing. I was like, did you enjoy it? He's like, yeah, I heckled him. And I was like, why'd you heckle him? And he was like, comedians love it when you heckle them. And I was like, no, we don't. And then he was like, yeah, they do, because then they can show their skills of like riffing with people. He's like, I pretty much heckle at every gig. And I was like, huh. But then I got further in and I kept asking question. And then I was like, I have a question for you. Are you interested in doing stand-up yourself? And he was like, oh, I actually do think I want to, but I'm scared. And I was like, this is the thing. Like, why are you heckling? Why do you want people to laugh at you? I was like, you want to do it, but you're too freaked out to do it.
And then he goes, I don't want to do it because I'm scared I'll be heckled.
Yeah.
But then he's doing it to other people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think there's more people out there who would love to try stand-up, but they're too scared. Because it's such a scary art form.
It is, I think, most people's biggest fear.
Yeah. Staring at people in the eyes going, here's something I've made for you. Please like me. With your verbal laughter cues.
But even coming from, like, I've done radio 10 years, and radio hosts are afraid of it. So afraid of it. Because, like, public speaking is people's biggest fear, but getting up there and your sole purpose is to make people laugh. On radio, are you sure you've done radio interviews and stuff? You can, like, your purpose isn't to be funny. It's a byproduct if you're funny. That's great. Like, you want to be funny. But if you say something that's, like, conversationally funny, your co-host will bail you out. They'll give you a good laugh. They'll make it seem like, it's not, the pressure's so low. Like, you always get bailed out. But when you're like, I'm here and I've got to do this thing.
Yes.
I guess it's the improv thing as well. It's not prepared on radio, really. So if it fails and the bit goes badly, it's kind of funny.
Yes.
When you get up and stand up, you're like,
yes.
That's why trying new bits sucks.
Yes.
Because you almost want to tell people, like, this is new.
True. Which is why scratch nights and like those sort of bar gigs that are like made to be, they're like, when the host comes out and says, this is all new stuff, that's funny because then you can get a laugh from failing as well.
Yeah.
You know, like you can do that thing where you're like, here's a joke, and then it's like crickets, and you're like, well, not doing that one again, and you scratch it off your list, and everyone's like, you know, because I think my favorite thing about comedy and the best comedians I know are the ones who can like label, well, it's about having a shared reality in the room together. The worst comedians are the ones who are saying their jokes and not paying attention to anyone, anything. It's like they've rehearsed it.
Yeah.
And even if their punchlines are amazing, you're like, you're not with us. But the best ones are like, oh, you've got a fun laugh. Or like, you're late. Or like, whatever. So it's like, we get the laugh from them being like, well, I just bombed. And I'm like, labeling the thing that's in the room, and everyone's like, yay, they are aware of it.
Oh my God. As I said, I've only been doing it a little while, and I've only just kind of realized how important that is. Like, because I was so nervous for a while, I was doing like the raw quest competition, so it's like you got 6 minutes to get through all your jokes in 6 minutes, and people are going to heckle you, so you're just like trying to like, and then now it's like, if I sit back into it, leave time for a little bit of like improv or time to actually reference something that's happening live, and I always start a set now with 30 seconds that I've never done before on something that the comic before me did or something that's happened in the crowd that night, and it immediately wins them over. And my sets have gone so much better. Same material, but it's so much better because of it.
Yeah.
Because you're not just there going, I'm here and I'm doing the joke and this is what you're doing.
Yeah. That's why a lot of people do crowd work.
Yeah.
And it's not because they necessarily are like, I love crowd work or anything. It's just like, it's a way of like landing everyone and being like, I'm reactive.
Yes.
I'm a person that you can talk to. Yeah. I saw an amazing gig at Goblin Bar. We do this gig called Goblin Girls, which is run by Johanna Cosgrove
I've seen
Goblin
that,
Bar.
I'm yet to come see it, but I will.
It's really cool. But there was one night where there was a jackhammer outside, basically doing construction, and a couple of the comedians didn't acknowledge it. You know, they just like straight through. And then Justine Smith, who is an absolute legend, got up and was just like, "What the fuck is that?" Like, you know, and like, "Is that my vibrator on?" Like, just fully. And then I reckon she did 5 minutes of material just on the jackhammer, and it was like such a relief. Like everyone in the room was just like, "Oh, she can hear it! Yay!"
Yes,
because we're all thinking it. We're all thinking, why is that jackhammer still going?
Otherwise it makes this plane between like the comics and the audience, and you're like, am I part of the show? Can I laugh? Am I going to get in trouble? But then when they're talking to you and you can respond and you feel like you're actually just mates hanging out.
Yeah.